and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. If you've got any questions related to any aspect of business, we've got it covered here on the show. I'm Sunita Singh Co-Founder. On the show tonight, we're talking opportunities and challenges for women when it comes to entrepreneurship, what you perhaps are hoping will see being changed in 2021, and also what you should keep in mind when it comes to increasing the labor force participation. All of that being dissected on the panel today. Let me quickly welcome in our panelists. Kranti Gada, CEO Shemaroo Entertainment, Achana Garodia Gupta, entrepreneur, Sunita Singh Co-Founder NEN Uma Reddy, Co-Chair FICCI Karnataka State Council and MD of Hitech Magnetics and Electronics. I want to thank each of you for joining us here on the show tonight. Let me start first off by reading out some data and the headlines, of course, not looking very encouraging when it comes to women in the workplace. Uma, if you could maybe take this question on first, but it's open to everyone on this panel. Women accounting for less than a quarter of the total workforce as we speak at this point. A report suggesting, in fact, that women CEOs dropping to 2.4% in FY20 versus 4.1%. That's just about 4 years ago. My question to you, Uma, is how can this be changed? What changes need to be brought about?
Women are definitely less than 25% of the labor force, as we keep saying that even they're less than 12% of the women entrepreneurs in the country. The need for a larger participation of women in the labor force is there, and I would look at it in three ways. One, I would say, is for the industry to employ more women. In my company, where I manufacture transformers in the name of Hitech Magnetics and Electronics, 90% of my staff are women. And the reason why I employ more women, I have my own good reasons. One, because I'm a woman. But the second point is that I would like to provide more opportunities to women. But more importantly, I find that the attrition rate of women is very, very low. They don't jump jobs so easily. When they find a comfortable situation, they tend to stay there. And that's a plus for anyone to employ women. On the second point, I would say that the ecosystem, which is, I would say, the government and the policies, should actually provide some incentives when they are talking about the greater 50% initiative of FICCI. And I feel that recognizing that initiative, if the government can come out with a policy that all those who employ women get an incentive in terms of profit, which goes to the employer for employing more women, or it could be a PF benefit for the company which is employing more women. That can help large number of women. So I think future, I see a larger participation of women, both in terms of employee and being employed and being an employer. But yes, time will tell.
If I could add some, points to what Uma was just saying. First, I agree with whatever you're saying, Uma. I think for me, it is really important to look at the trend that is happening, and we have some very paradoxical trends in this country. If you look at necessity-based employment of women, you see that that's really at a higher rate. If on the other hand you see educated women who have the option of choosing to work or not to work, you see a reverse trend in that space. And that to me is a real issue, because it reflects on more than one thing. It reflects on how we regard women's role in our society. And it seems almost to suggest that only if a family needs the money should women go into employment, and it's a reflection of a social status in some form or shape. Although some of that is changing in the larger metros. We see a lot more women entrepreneurs today, but I think by and large we're talking of India as a nation, and we're really not just talking of the privileged women who have a lot more exposure and therefore make different choices. So if we want our country as a whole to really be able to leverage the strengths that women bring, I think there has to be a look at the social fabric, the social aspects of this, and also what's the messaging, what's the policy and the other messaging that we provide in order to encourage women to participate much more actively in the workforce. And in this context, I think another thing to really look at is the role of men in enabling, encouraging, supporting women to participate actively in the workplace.
I think you're right that it's the educated women who are preferentially they're dropping out of the workforce. India, we've seen a secular decline from about 40% to close to 20% now in the female labor force participation. And that is mainly due to the increase in income of the country as a whole. As people get better off, the women don't need to go out to work. Now, and this is something which is being talked all over the world, because India has been actually a very almost an outlier in this space. Now, if you look at European countries and you look at the inflection point, when is it that the women's labor force participation became more than 50%, 60%, 70%? The main reason was adequate child care provision by the state. And if you see the countries which have the highest women's labor force, they have very good childcare systems where the schools more or less seamlessly convert into and they offer a lot of activities to the children in that time.
So I want to come back to that point of the women CEOs, dropping and halving, in a period of just about 3 to 4 years. What can be done to really fix that? Open to all four of you.
Yeah, so I would say the percentages of CEOs. I mean, I think some of the answers can be found in the discussion that we just had. Couple of reasons. One is that as you go higher and higher, the women who drop out increase. So it's literally like a pyramid, over there. There will be a considerable amount of women at the lower rungs, and as they grow older, they have family responsibilities, elder care, child care, or husband doing really well, I will take a step back, all sorts of stuff happening. So the amount of women available for senior positions itself, I feel much lower. uh, Also, women who are, I mean, again, building on Uma's point,
Okay.
that CEO positions entail
Okay.
the highest level of responsibility, right? You are literally the parent of the whole organization. So women who are up to taking a challenge, they will have to give up something personal or family lives. And how many of us are willing to do that, or how many of us believe it's worth the sacrifice, or that I can balance both and do both.
That basically the attrition level is higher for women at every level in corporate organizations. So obviously the pool available at the top becomes less. But I'd like to say here that the number of people entering is going up. For example, 20 years ago, IIM Ahmedabad had about 10% women students, and now it has about 30% women students. So the pool itself, the entry pool is going up. But I think the latest figures which have come out, only 7% of the women who are working are salaried. Most all the other women in India, the other women run their own businesses or enterprise, or they're professionals. So in India, if you're really okay, we can focus on what those 7% and what is going to be their future in terms of being CEOs. But in India, the way forward for women is going to be entrepreneurship, I think. Because as it is, most of the formal sector, it has been quite a jobless growth. So to carve out a space in that and you'll be transferring jobs, that's a tougher proposition. It's easier, or at least I think it's worthwhile to concentrate our energies on encouraging women entrepreneurship. And here I'd like to say something. You see, of course, the society and circumstances should be such that there is no difference in, opportunity for or barriers for men and women. But effectively, today there are barriers, and how we can help overcome some of them is that I think digital businesses, e-commerce, things like that can be done from home, or you can at least manage your time so that you can take care of your other responsibilities. It's good to wish away those other responsibilities, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon. So if you see, and I'd like to share some numbers with you, women in India doing business on Facebook and WhatsApp are accounting for, I think, about $4 billion worth of business every year now. If you look at, normally, if you see MSMEs, women owners, Bangalore has a very good record. I think 10% of businesses are owned by women. But if you see the data for Amazon or Snapdeal and all, and you see how many women vendors are there, it is closer to 30%. So this is something I think one should push at, because it is a area in which is a growth area, and women, some of the disadvantages women face are taken care of out here.
I have to slip in a short break on that note. We're back in just a moment. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. And tonight, I'm in conversation with some of India's better known female entrepreneurs and leaders to really talk about what can be done to encourage entrepreneurship in the country for women, the opportunities and the challenges for 2021. So I want to talk sector specific. Banking traditionally has seen the highest percentage of women CXOs, particularly women CEOs. At about 10 odd percent of all banking head honchos, typically having been women and female leaders who've taken that top spot. That too has halved. What can be done? That's on one hand. And on the other hand, what can be done to encourage more women entrepreneurs and women leaders really in traditional sectors like say manufacturing, industrial production, etc.? What can be done?
Let me answer that largely because if you really look at engineering colleges of today, right, there are more girls than boys. In fact, literally the percentage for getting a seat in an engineering college, I understand is lower for boys than for girls. So that, there are boys in the college, there are more girls. That's what I've heard. But honestly, when I joined college, there were only about six girls in the entire engineering college, which became 45 when I joined in. And now there are so many of them. Yet, if you really look at entrepreneurship development and in enterprises, they're very, very few. So you see a larger number of women now getting into entrepreneurship later. But I've also seen something very different, that those who have done their engineering, who have worked in a corporate sector in technology area, after few years want to do something totally different. And I've seen a large number of women getting into things like baking, something which is creative, pottery, crafts. And I wouldn't negate it, because I suppose when you get to that age, your creative genes, especially with women, comes in force, and you see a lot of art and creativity coming, and many women taking up those kind of enterprises also. So definitely, I feel there is a larger participation, but we should not also forget the large number who are unregistered but who are finding employment on their own. And there are many of them. As Achana said, they're there on Facebook, they're there on Amazon, and they're there on our streets. You see so many of them into small food businesses, small enterprises, and they're all entrepreneurs in their own right, but we do not have data. They're not registered firms. So I think we do have a large number of women in the informal sector, which is not a content that we have captured as data. So a lot of data is required in this.
Sunita, take on the point also of the fact that it's not just CEOs, but it's also CXOs of companies where you see a lot of struggle when it comes to having that second rung, which is highly capable, being led really by women. What can be done to change that?
So, nurturing women entrepreneurs, there are no two ways that needs to happen, and for a variety of reasons, I think. You know, women entrepreneurs, um, and I mean, it's really hard to generalize, but the observation is that a larger numbers of them need a lot more encouragement, because they're more self-doubting than the male entrepreneurs for some reason. And particularly when you're talking of scalable businesses, that if you look at the entrepreneurial ecosystem, the measure is really investable, scalable businesses, rather than just businesses solving, even regular businesses solving problems in the society. So if you look at that, then women tend to kind of fall behind a little bit, and some of the reasons could be that, and they've been mentioned before, I must say, whether it is being inspired by other really women entrepreneurs who look like them, feel like them, but are doing something really bigger than themselves. It could also be that when you look at raising money, there are still some biases that exist out there, and women entrepreneurs don't find it really easy to raise funding unless they have some very vocal male co-founders in their team. And this is despite the fact that all data shows that businesses with women as founders and co-founders tend to do much better and give better returns on investment across board, whether it is micro enterprise or it is VC funded companies. That's the reality. So there is a need to support and put women, more of the young women, in front of of investors, and to do some hand holding in order for them to actually have a level playing field.
Uma, Kranti, to both of you, working from home, particularly in the services sector, is likely going to get slightly more easier thanks to the standing order that we've heard from the government when it comes to the services space. My question to you is it enough? Is that perhaps going to be the impetus that was needed to really push employment of women in the services space?
So I feel that if it's only women entrepreneurs, and as women entrepreneurs, we tend to employ more women. But if you want the larger corporate and the large MSMEs and the large number of MSMEs to employ more women, give them an incentive to employ more women. Let the government policy ensure that there is an incentive in terms of a ESI, the employer's ESI contribution, or the employer's PF contribution is taken care of by the government for the next 3 years or 5 years, and when they employ more women. Now, this is a way that you encourage them to employ more women, especially in the MSME sector, which employs a large number of, the 10 standard, the PUCs, the diplomas, the ITIs, and that's an area where we can get in a larger participation of women. And the second one is, as for women entrepreneurs by themselves, I think more easier access to finance, easier marketing channels for them to then grow. As women entrepreneurs grow, they tend to employ more. So you would then see the multiplier effect. So these are the two areas which I think.
I would say that work from home can become a massive catalyst to actually bringing women back to the workforce. If we can use this pandemic and the acceptance of work from home to actually build modules where you actually slowly ease in women back into the workforce. See, between, I would say, maybe 28 to 30 or up to maybe even 42 is a time when a woman gives a lot of attention to her young children, all of that. And by the time she's in her 40s, she's actually probably free to
Okay.
even take up work, but does not know how to come back to the sector. So hence many of them then look at the informal sector. But if there can be programs where handhold women in a step-by-step program, like say first quarter they work 4 hours a day, and you gradually increase them and also give them an option of working from home, I think we can actually bring back a lot of women, capable women, back into the workforce.
All right, let me get closing comments then on this panel from all four of you. Uh, Research showing that 98% of men, compared to about 91% of women, have come back into the workplace post pandemic. What's really going to change that? What's going to really bring women back into the workforce for 2021? What would you like to say?
So just last week, we were formulating our back to work policy. We were thinking of calling, people in once a week. And one pertinent point that I made is that children are still at home. Schools have not yet started. How are our women going to come back to work? Because in most of the houses, they are going to be expected to be the ones who stay back. And hence, can we look at a policy where we actually don't edit on them and give them the option of still working from home, even if others are coming back to work? Very simple aspects like these are actually keeping women back at home. And if corporates can be more flexible, keep these in mind. And at the same time, I would say women, finding a way to work around and manage their family lives. It will take time to, adjust and make the provisions, but we have to, I feel, be the ones who do it for ourselves and get back to work.
So, taking on from what Kranti said, I think my two strongest recommendations would be: one is to provide very good childcare systems, preferably schemes to incentivize schools to provide seamless childcare. And the second would be to focus on inducting women into digital businesses, because that is something which is easy to work from home. Looking forward to what is going on, and it is generally proved successful for women. So these are the two recommendations I would like to give.
My outlook is very optimistic. I believe the work from home as a regularized way of operating, plus the gig economy, which allows people to do part-time work in a legitimate manner, where it is no longer something that you do because you're not able to get into full-time job, but something that you do out of choice. I think those are absolutely they're going to be the turning point for women in workforce, for particularly the larger educated professional women. But I also think that there's also the discovery for the women in the informal sector of what they can do using digital platforms already. So yes, more encouragement is required, but I think that discovery has already happened, and we'll see that really being leveraged in the future.
I must say that the pandemic has not only brought about challenges for us, but has provided a huge number of opportunities. There are a large number of women that are looking at the service sector, especially looking at new opportunities, new digital platforms where they've actually, we've seen a rise in startup enterprises coming out of home. And we did some very special programs under the banner of Ubuntu along with Amazon, getting the rural women entrepreneurs to actually sell their products on Amazon. Okay. So we had training because that was an area that they never had. They only used to sell their handicraft items to shops. But under the Ubuntu Emerge and all the association banners, we helped them to go through a training program on how to put up their products on Amazon. So there's been a huge amount of opportunities, and many enterprises have actually started, but I think it is sustaining them and letting them grow. And I think all these digital platforms will provide that opportunity.
All right, ladies, thank you very much for your time here on the show. For those of you watching at home, if you have any suggestions, any thoughts, any comments that you want to leave us, you get in touch. Our contact details are on your screen as we speak. For everyone else, thank you so much for watching. Have a good night.